Andrei has been an intellectual property lawyer for over 20 years. I invite you, Vancouver business members and guests, to put your hands together and give a rousing welcome to Mr. Andrei Mincov.
Thank you. I was 19 years old when my father, famous Russian composer Mark Mincov, got a radio station stealing his music. They took a song that he wrote for a children's film and made it into an ad for Samsung without his permission. And when he called them and told them that they couldn't just take his music and use it as they pleased, they told him to sit down, shut up, and be grateful that they're making him even more famous. And if you knew my father, you'd know right away he didn't like it very much. He didn't like it at all. So he said, all right, I'll see you in court. And after he slammed down the phone, and that was the time when you could actually slam down the phone, he came to me and asked me if I could help him sue the radio station for copyright infringement. At that time, I was still living in Russia and attending a law school there. Thing
Good
is,
accent.
you got it. Yeah. Thing is, I didn't want to be a lawyer. I had my hair long like this. All I thought about was girls, booze, and music. Frankly, lawyering was the last thing on my mind. And I've always admired my dad. His approval was extremely important to me. So, even though I was this long-haired wannabe law student, or rock star who was a law student, when he asked me if I could help him take this to court, I said, sure, let's give it a try. There were just 3 little problems with this. First of all, I had no idea about intellectual property. I can guarantee you that each and every one of you knows more about it today than I knew back then. I had no idea what to do in a courtroom. They simply hadn't taught us that yet. But worst of all, my biggest problem was that there was no Google. You couldn't just go online and search, how do you sue a radio station that stole your father's music? And so I had to figure that out the old-fashioned way, through books, through asking a lot of questions to a lot of people. And eventually we sued them and ripped them apart in the courtroom. I was triumphant until they bought the judge and we lost. Remember, this is Russia, 1996, right? Not that a lot of things have changed in the corruption department there, but still want to kind of date this whole thing. And to me, I was completely devastated. I just, failed my father. And I remember this moment very clearly. I was sitting in my room, reading the judge's decision over and over and over again, try to make any sense of it. Try to comprehend the logic behind the finding that because the radio station stole my father's music, they did not have to pay. And he came into my room and he says, so what are you going to do now? I don't know. I think I've done all the right things. I've said all the right words. I don't know what I should have done any differently. And he said, well, if you're not going to appeal this, you should quit your law school and find yourself a different profession. That moment, that conversation, is really what I count as the beginning of my legal career. And if you're wondering what happened after that, we appealed this, we appealed this, we appealed this. So I ended up taking this case, the very first case of my law career, from the very bottom of the court system all the way up to one level below the Supreme Court of Russia. where I won. And in the process, I became so passionate about protecting intellectual property that I kept it ever since. Really, that's the only work I've been doing ever since. And again, in that process, I also saw how it feels like when somebody steals what you've poured your heart and soul into. I saw what it does to your focus. I saw what it does to your productivity. I saw what it does to your life. And my dad was my first and favorite client, but I've since helped thousands of businesses, thousands of clients, ranging from one-man's or tiny startups and little-known authors to multi-billion-dollar companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, DreamWorks, and I can go on and on and on, to celebrities like J.K. Rowling. And regardless of their size, regardless of the size of their wallet, really what was driving my passion was an opportunity to help them all protect that which only exists because they created it, their intellectual property. And that passion is what still drives me today. So over the 20 years that I've been doing this, I've helped thousands of clients, and I've met thousands of business owners who think they know everything about trademarks, except for what, when, where, why, and how to trademark. So really that's what today's thing is going to be all about. And here's what you're going to learn today. What I'm going to start with is 2 deadly branding mistakes that I see done by business owners all the time. And you will notice that these 2 mistakes may seem like the opposites of each other, yet we see them committed by the same business owner all the time. The other one is 3 must-haves of all successful brands. If you analyze any successful brand, I can guarantee you it's going to have all those 3 components. You're also going to go through what, where, when, why, and how to trademark. And I'll also walk you through a secret trademarking strategy, or how I call it, trademark growth hacking strategy, that will allow you to build a massive competitive advantage, even if what you do is no different from what your competition does. And David, I'm sure you're going to like this because of the example that I'm going to use. So, yeah, it's not meant to be read, it's meant to be a joke. So none of what you're going to hear is legal advice. So let's start with the deadly mistakes. So the first one that I see all the time is brand owners or business owners agonize too much trying to find that perfect brand, that perfect logo, that perfect tagline. As much or as important as a brand is to a business, the brand itself is not sufficient for you to have a successful business. So, and that part I'm going to cover in the 3 requirements of any successful brand. But this is something that you should always bear in mind. A brand is important, but a brand is not going to replace your business. Come up with something and then make sure that you have a product or a service that the market wants. Right? Nobody's going to buy your product just because it has a nice name to it, or better yet, a nice logo. The second mistake that I see all the time is that even after they came up with a good brand, they don't protect it early enough. So they leave it unprotected for too long until it's too late. So, like I said, I see these 2 mistakes committed by the same business owner all the time. First of all, they spend inordinate amount of time. Well, you know what? Have you launched? No, not yet. Well, why not? Well, I fired 5 designers who did my 5 logos. Now I'm version 6. And when they come up with it, then I'm going to launch it. Okay, so they come up with version 6. They launch it. People like it. And I'm, okay, is it a time for you to protect it now? No, I'm going to see how it works, how it goes. So don't make these 2 mistakes, and I'm going to explain, in more detail what you do and when you do it and how you do it. So 3 must-haves of all successful brands. Number one, it needs to be memorable. If you look at the list of the 100 or 1,000, any list of valuable brands, what you're going to notice is that all of them are very memorable, but very few of them are actually brilliant. They're not, a strong brand is not about literary talent. It's about finding something that people can remember, that they can tell about to their friends, to their families. But it does not have to be that super clever, super amazing concept. All it has to be memorable. Two, it needs to be connected to something that works. Right? If you have the best brand, you have the best logo, the best name, the best tagline, but you're selling something that nobody wants to buy, you don't have a valuable brand. Right? So you have to have something that you know the market is interested in. And the third requirement is that it needs to be well protected. If you have a good brand, you have good product, good service, but everybody's ripping you off right and left, you don't have a valuable brand. That's a problem. So, and that takes you back to the 3 mistakes, right? So when I say don't agonize over the perfect brand, okay, so apparently I can't do this. Having a memorable brand is enough. Once you know that you have something memorable, just go to here, build a business. And at the same time, protect the brand, because once you've proven that a lot of people want your business, at that point it's too late to protect the brand. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. So what am I selling? What I'm selling here today is something very simple. It's a concept that your brand is valuable. If you're building a business, the brand under which people know about you is valuable. So I'm not going to have any offers. I'm not going to have any, discounted prices, none of that stuff. I'm not selling you anything that requires you to pull out a credit card today and pay me something. But what I am selling you is the concept that you should never discount the importance of protecting your brand once you've figured that out. Because A, it's peace of mind, and B, it's a valuable asset for your business. Depending on what you're going to do with this, whether you're going to grow it or license it or sell it or franchise it, the value of the brand can be one of the most valuable assets in your business.
Andrei, can you comment on how you'd like to field questions and how people can get hold of your slides?
Yeah. So slides, that's a good question. So here, you can see my email. So tm@trademarkfactory.com. Right. You're welcome to send me an email, and I will email the slides to whoever requests them. Right. As for questions, I'm going to take them as you have them. Let's make this as interactive as we can. Just not. Okay. Good? Good. So let's start here. What the hell are trademarks? And I'm not going to give you a dictionary definition of a trademark because nobody wants them. And really, what I'm famous for is explaining intellectual property so that a 9-year-old can understand. And the reason I'm saying this is because I had a 9-year-old who actually gone through a lot of my presentations. She could probably deliver half of this presentation herself right now. She also helped me proofread my books, and I use her as a test. Is something that I'm explaining easy to understand? So here's the definition from that book. So a trademark is anything, as long as it allows you, or as long as it allows your market to tell your products and services apart from similar or identical products and services of your competition. So let's do this again. It's anything as long as it allows the market to tell your products and services apart from identical or similar products and services of everyone else. So how I see this is I try to visualize a box, right? is a box, and it's sitting in a supermarket. And in that box, you have your product or even your service, right? Mortgage services, mortgage broker services. Imagine that you're selling those services as something tangible that's sitting in a box. Now imagine there's another box right next to yours of another mortgage broker. So a trademark would be something that would allow somebody who's passing by that shelf to tell David's mortgage brokerage services from those of Jeff, right? Could be a name, could be a tagline, could be a logo. Again, I'm going to go through the forms of trademarks in a moment, but the function of a trademark is to distinguish identical or very similar products and services. If it fulfills that function, it can be a trademark. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. Now, precisely because of that, a trademark must do more than simply describe a feature or a characteristic of that product or a service. So if you're selling accounting services, you could not trademark timely or accurate, right? Because all it does, it explains what people can expect from you when they're ordering your accounting services. And if Roger was an accountant and he got a trademark for accurate accounting, that would mean that he could stop everyone else in the country from saying that they're also offering accurate accounting. That'd be a little bit unfair, because that's not the function of a trademark. So here are five main things that businesses usually trademark. The name of the business, right? The name of the product. If you have multiple products, those would be separate things to trademark. Names of services. Logos that you use to identify the name of the company, the products or services. And taglines, again, that identify the business, products, and services. Not every business needs all of them. Most businesses don't need them all. Or let me rephrase that. Very few businesses would have all of those types of trademarks. But many do. Usually what you start with is, if it's a service business, again, it all depends on the industry. Right? If it's a service-based business, usually the name of the service and the name of the company are the same. Right? If it's a product-based business, then depending on whether it's a one-product company or many product company, you would either have the name of the company plus the products or just the name of the product. Service businesses are very heavy on taglines, because that's how they differentiate themselves from everyone else who does the same thing. Logos are mostly used as a trademark by businesses where customers actually come in physical touch with the product. Or if you're driving by, there's a big sign, right? The McDonald's, right? You're driving by, you see it, you stop, right? So if you have brick and mortar locations, or if you have physical products that are sold in brick and mortar stores, that's another reason to consider, coming up with a memorable logo and trademarking it. Now, our own trademark that I will forever be thankful to Roger for coming up with is this. If it's remarkable, it's trademarkable. I was actually doing a presentation a couple of years ago, and at the end of it, Roger pulled me aside and said, "Well, Andrei."
There's a screen, something else.
Oh, thank you. That wouldn't help. So anyway, he pulled me aside and said, "Andrei, it was a good presentation, and here's what I thought about." "What is it, Roger?" He said, "Well, you keep telling people about remarkable and memorable. How about this? If it's remarkable, it's trademarkable." I said, "Great, Roger. Can you sit here for half an hour?" And he said, "Sure." And I run home, and I file a trademark application for if it's remarkable, it's trademarkable. I come back and say, Roger, thank you, that's the fastest trademark I've ever filed. So, but really that's what trademarks are all about. If you have something that makes you different, that makes you stand out from the crowd, that's something you want to trademark. Now, the secret strategy that I promised to share is this. It's very secret. So let me start with an example, with a real example, and then I'm going to give you a fictional example that Dave is going to like. So the real example is this. A while ago, Ford was having TV commercials. I don't know if they still do it. They might. All of their commercials ended with, only Ford has EcoBoost fuel economy. Interestingly, never once did they tell you what the hell EcoBoost fuel economy was. They never told you how it was better than in competition. They never even told you how it was different. All they told you is that they were the only ones that had it. And human mind is wired in a way that when somebody's trying to sell you something and they tell you that they're the only ones that have something, you automatically assume it's got to be good. It wouldn't be logical for somebody to try to sell you something and say that we're the only ones that have something and it makes them worse than the competition. Right? Another example is Chevron. Right? They're the only gas that has Techron in it. Does anybody know what that is?
Octane.
Yeah, but really, Techron is nothing. It's a name. So here's the strategy that they used. They found a feature that's important to the market. That feature does not have to make them unique. They just found something that's important to whoever is going to pay them something. And they gave it a unique name. EcoBoost, Techron. Then they trademarked the name. And when they trademarked the name, they got the legal right to say they're the only ones that have it. And then they started to use the name everywhere. On their business cards, on their stands, on their ads, and their websites, everywhere. That's the strategy. And so a while ago, when I was trying to come up with a funny way to demonstrate this, I thought, okay, I need to come up with a fictional example. And I tried to come up with the most boring profession, and it just so happened to be mortgage broker. David, I'm sorry. It's in my book. So, I mean, look. No, I mean, look. That's the thing. It's very difficult for you guys to explain to potential buyers why they should buy from you, other than you're a nice person to deal with, right? Because all of you say exactly the same thing, right? You say we're personable. We will get you the best rates. We don't depend on banks. We don't get commission, but right? Everybody says the same thing. So I try to think, okay, how would that strategy work for a mortgage broker? And I thought, okay, what if a mortgage broker said, I am the only mortgage broker in the world who uses IHNC calculator to determine the best rates for you? Sounds a little bit more sexy, right? Until you ask them, what does IHNC stand for? And it stands for I have no clue. Right, so obviously that's a joke of an example, but it demonstrates how you can actually use this tactic to create uniqueness out of nothing. Right? The name can give you that uniqueness. And one of the best branding people I've learned from, Jerry Foster, he explained this very clearly, is that you don't want to be a Me Too business. You don't want to be a me all business. And this strategy allows you to do this. Right? So even if what you're doing is no different from your competition, finding a feature, giving it a unique name, trademarking the name, and using it everywhere works like magic.
So what actually is Techron?
It's a name.
It's not a chemical, it's not an additive, it's...
It's usually just a single octane in every other
It's
gas.
something
Give it a
that,
name called
yeah.
Placebo effect.
Really?
Isn't that brilliant?
Yeah.
Isn't that brilliant? Like instead of spending millions on research, you say, okay, this thing has this. Great, let's give it a name. Right? We can't produce it without it. Right? In the SEO space, what's his face, Brian? I'm not telling them I'm the only person who's selling mortgage services. Right? You're just telling them I'm the only one who does it this way, through that name.
Yeah.
That was a question.
I was curious. Say that you use this strategy and you want it to expand it to another country with another language. Do you have to re-register the trademark or whatever phrase in that language if you're going to translate it?
Yes, I'm going to go about registering trademarks and where you want to register them. But the short answer to your question is you register trademarks in all the countries where you want protection, and if they speak a different language, you need to translate that.
Okay.
Okay. We're good? All right. So why register trademarks? There are three big reasons. So this is Bob. He has a business with a really unique name, Bob's Enterprises. Right? We've got a logo, the orange circle. And here's why this guy who kind of knows that his brand is valuable and he wants to protect it, here's why he would want to do it. So the first reason is that it minimizes the risk of being forced to rebrand. How many of you guys know what used to be Vancity Buzz?
Mm-hmm.
How many of you know that they recently changed their brand?
Pretty high.
How many of you know why they changed the brand?
They got bought.
Hmm?
They got bought by a bigger company.
No. Because somebody trademarked BuzzFeed, and they realized they couldn't continue to expand their operations as Vancity Buzz, and they had to remove Buzz from their name. After 8 years of building the business, of building the followers, they had to rebrand because somebody's trademark application got through before theirs. So if they did it early enough, they would have all sorts of options. If they like the new name, great. Right? It's not about that. But the question is, you don't want to be forced to change your name after you start getting some traction with that. The second reason is that with a registered trademark, you minimize the risk of customer confusion and cost of trademark disputes. In both Canada and US, you can actually do something with an unregistered trademark or without a registered trademark, but it's going to cost you infinitely more if you don't have a registered trademark to prove that the other side needs to stop using your brand. Again, I'm going to walk you through the benefits of registration in a moment, but everything about law, and IP law in particular, is about risk management. Right? You always want to find a way to minimize your business risks, and if you're thinking about the risk of having somebody steal your brand, again, that's the way to do that. The final benefit is that you're building or the final reason is that you're building a valuable asset. So if you ever see your business exist with you out of it, you sell the business or you license it out, or you franchise it out, or your kids are going to carry on, whatever, right? Unless your business is supposed to die the second you decide to no longer be a part of it, there's value to the brand, and you want to protect it so that whoever takes it from you either pays you for it or at least gives you a big hug and thanks you for it. Now, the solution to solve all of these three things, the minimizing the risk of forced rebranding, minimizing the risk of expensive disputes, and maximizing values to register your trademark. So if you take the unregistered trademark, which you mark with TM, into an R in a circle, which is a registered trademark. Now, here are the three benefits. I'm going to start with them from the least important to the most important. So number three, as I mentioned, in both Canada and US, there is some limited protection to unregistered trademarks. So what it means is that in both Canada and US, if you've been in business long enough, if you have enough people who know about you under that brand in a particular geographical location, you can stop somebody in that same geographical location from adopting the same or very similar brand for very similar products and services, even if you've never trademarked, right? But by definition, this means that you have to have launched already. You have to have developed a crowd of those people who know about you under that brand. With registered trademark, the second you apply for it, you're protected, even if you never launched a product yet.
What if there's a conflict? What if somebody else is registered something similar, words, but if there's a competing registration, it's already.
Yeah. At that point, great question. So, has everyone heard the question?
No.
Okay, so the question was, what if there is already a conflicting trademark application or trademark registration? And the answer to that is, at that point, you know right away you don't want to use that name, because that's the purpose of them trademarking the name, and that's precisely why you don't want to be in the situation of receiving that letter from somebody else that tells you, that's my brand. Yeah, exactly. Right? So with trademarks, whoever does it first usually wins, unless you can prove that you've been doing this much earlier than they were, and okay, thank you. All right, so unless we thought that'd be a better way to do it, so it's going to restart. So anyway, so what you do when you come up with a brand, and that's what all branding, or that's what all serious branding companies do, is they check to see if the name they came up with can actually be used, right? And because if the answer to that is no, then you should not be using that brand, because you're at that point playing a lose-lose game, right? If you're using a brand that you can't use, then either you're going to lose because you're going to stay so small that nobody's going to give a damn about you, so nobody's going to sue you, but you know, it's never going to get to the point when it would pay them, and it would make them it would make sense for them to go after you, right? And that's never a purpose of a business owner, to build a business that fails. Or you're going to grow the business only to find out that you can't use the brand because they were there first, right?
A registered trademark owner could only pursue somebody if it infringed on their business name, not just the name. Like Apple Computer.
Yeah.
Apple, one of the largest brands on the planet. But there's also Apple Auto Glass. I've seen a store called Apple something. It was a vegetable or fruit stand.
Yeah.
Does a trademark not give you the right? Obviously, it doesn't give you the right to global use of that name, as long as it's not infringing or confusing to the consumer.
Okay. Great question. So there are two parts to what a trademark covers. There's a name or the logo or whatever the actual mark is, and the products and services that it covers. So a trademark doesn't give you the monopoly over the name, the phrase, the image, or the phrase. The link between that word, phrase, image, and the particular products and services that you offer. So the example that I always use is McDonald's. Right? So they don't own the phrase "I'm loving it." Right? they own the phrase I'm loving it for restaurant services. So if you're a funeral home or a gynecologist, right, you can not only safely use that same phrase for your business, you can even trademark it, and McDonald's couldn't do anything about it. Right? So if the name is the same, but the products and services are completely different, and nobody in their right mind would think that they come from the same source, there is no infringement. Right? Because a trademark infringement is all about confusion. Right? Would Bobby, who once saw your brand, when faced with the brand from somebody else, would they think they're buying from David? And if the answer is, we don't really know, but it's probable, then there is trademark infringement. If they know right away that, yeah, of course, David is David and Jennifer is Jennifer, because they offer completely different services, then there is no confusion. Okay?
You must have heard of Tony Robbins. There is a guy who's called Madenis, and he advertises coaching program as Tony Robbins Madenis, and it's very confusing because he's citing the name, but he has nothing to do with Tony Robbins. So
Right.
I was wondering how he can get away with it.
Well, I need to know more about how
Because he
he's doing
sells
it.
coaching services as well.
Okay.
So I find that
Is that a part of his real name?
He added his last name to Tony Robbins.
Yeah, but did his parents call him Tony Robbins?
No.
Is he not working in conjunction with Tony Robbins?
No. Separate, no, US.
So more than once.
Yeah.
No, I think he's in
Partner with Tony
Yeah.
Robbins.
So I don't know that, so I can't comment. But basically,
Have you researched?
there's a very simple answer to that. There's going to be two possibilities. One, he got the license from Tony, right? So he can do it. Actually, three possibilities, right? So he can do it because he got a license. Second reason is that he can't, and Tony is actively suing him right now, or he might have some legitimate reason why he can use that name. I don't know that reason, right? Without knowing it, I can't really make any meaningful comment. All right, so the only way to protect the brand before you launch it is to file a trademark application for it. Right, so if you know that what you're launching is going to be of interest to your competition, especially in other parts of the country, and you won't have the ability to quickly launch it there as well, you should consider filing it right away. The second reason is precisely that. So remember what I said, that an unregistered trademark protects you in the geographical area where enough people know about you under that brand. Right? So if you're a restaurant in Vancouver and it has a nice name, it's perfect, and you didn't register as a trademark, it's perfectly legal for somebody else in Ontario to call their restaurant exactly the same name. There's no trademark infringement because the geographical area of the Vancouver restaurant is just this, right? With a registered trademark, you get a protection all across the country. But remember what I said, that it's per country, right? So a Canadian trademark only protects you in Canada, US trademark protects you in US, a Zimbabwean trademark protects you in Zimbabwe, right? And speaking of which, when you decide in which markets or which countries you want to register your trademarks, think about the markets, right? It doesn't matter where you are. What matters is where your market is.
Do you have to have a business presence?
No. So you don't have to start companies in those countries. You can file it on behalf of a Canadian company. Even a Canadian individual can own international trademarks.
What if there's a trademark for your name in the U.S., not in Canada?
Yeah,
So you
happens
could go
all the
ahead-
time.
You could do it, but then if you want.
So you can
to
run a
go into the
business
US
in
market,
Canada, but you can't actively pursue
you have to
business in the
rebrand
US.
it in the U.S.
Yeah. So, and that really gives you a challenge. Do you want to have two brands, one for Canada, one for US, or you want to find something that works in both countries, right? And yeah, we see these cases all the time.
That's what's going on with when I started to search.
Yeah, and really the solution for smaller businesses usually is to come, especially if they know they're going to eventually go to the second jurisdiction, is to find a name that works everywhere, right? That's unfortunately the answer, because you don't want to be in a situation when your success there depends on somebody else's mercy, right? And three, or number one, is that a registered trademark gives you the presumption of validity and ownership. So here's what this means, and this will explain to you what I meant when I said that a registered trademark minimizes the cost of disputes. With an unregistered trademark, in order for me to win the case, so let's say I have a restaurant in Vancouver and somebody starts a restaurant in Richmond with the same name. Right? In order for me to win, I would need to prove to the judge that the name that I have is a trademark, that I own it, that enough people know about my brand in Richmond, and that the other restaurant owner should have known about it. Right? And there's nothing more expensive in a courtroom than having to prove something. Right? This can easily cost you an extra $50,000, $60,000, because you need experts, you need witnesses, you need surveys, you need lawyers who will basically translate what experts, witnesses, and reports say in a language that the judge will understand. And with a registered trademark, all you have to do is show the judge a piece of paper that's going to say certificate of registration. Now the other side needs to prove that it's either not a trademark or is that wasn't properly issued. So now they have to find their experts, their witnesses, their surveys, and again, now they have to spend the money. And in any litigation, you want to be the side that does this. They sit and they look at the other side, toss the money, and waste the money. It's a lot better position than you having to figure it all out yourself. Okay? Now, when should you register your trademarks? So what I did a while ago, early this year, I did a research as to when all the hottest startups filed their first trademark application. And that was very educational for me, and hopefully it will be for you as well. So obviously they all trademarked their brands at some point, but my question was, when in their business cycle did they file their first trademark? So Uber, the $51 billion company, filed their first trademark application 2 months before they launched. Stripe, the credit card processor, filed their trademark application 8 months before they launched. Anybody knows what that is? Firefox, 2 months before launch. Google. These guys, same month. These guys? Facebook, same month. Periscope, same month. These guys?
It's
Airbnb. So these guys, I love this story. They filed their first trademark application when the owner was still renting out his own freaking bedroom on Airbnb to pay for the overhead. Right? So they all did it before they were anywhere on the map. And the reason they all did it so early is because they knew that they could become the next big thing. And they all did it because they believed that they could be the next big thing. So they did what next big things do. They protect their assets. And interestingly, all of you knew the icons. That's the power of the brand. But again, if you look at all of them, the names or the logos, it's not an amazing piece of art like this. That's not an amazing piece of art. right? Or the name Stripe, or the name whatever, Uber. They're memorable, they're connected to a successful business, and they're well protected. That's what makes them valuable. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, how do you register? How do you register them? There are 3 ways you can do this. You can do it yourself, and most people don't realize that it's a very long process. It takes about 18 months in Canada, about 14 months in the US. And I'm just going to quickly walk you through this. So first you do the search to make sure that the name you came up with, you can actually use it and trademark it. Then you draft the application. So you put the, that was your question, right? The trademark, you put the list of products and services in it, and then you file it. And then from there, there's 2 options. Your trademark can be approved. So the Trademarks Office in about 35% of the cases is going to say, we love your application. It's the best application we've ever seen. There's everything perfect with it. Like I said, 35% of the cases, they'll approve it right away. The second option is they're going to issue what's called an office action. They're going to send you a letter that's going to list reasons why they don't think you have a perfect application. Out of those 65% of the cases that receive those office actions, I would say probably 70% are relatively minor, and about 30% require a lot of work to actually argue with them and explain why you're right and they're wrong. So if you got the office action, there are 2 scenarios from here. The bad scenario is that you can't convince them to approve your trademark. Right? They say they don't like something about the application. You're really trying hard to explain why it should go through. They still say no. You try again. They still say no. You try again. They say, we told you. It's the last time. No. In this case, your trademark dies a painful death. Or the good case scenario, your trademark gets approved, and you're back to that point. After that, they will publish it, or advertise it, as they call it in Canada, in a journal or gazette. And the point of that is to allow the public, who for some reason is closely paying attention to all the newly filed trademark applications, they're giving you an opportunity for a month or 2 months, depending on the jurisdiction, to request the Trademarks Office not to register a trademark. Kind of a wedding scenario, right? Does anyone have anything against that? In both Canada and US, it happens in about 1% of the cases. It's what I call a catastrophe scenario. So in the good case scenario, it's published, nobody ever opposes it, it gets allowed. In the bad case scenario, it gets opposed. Like I said, 1% of the cases. And if it's opposed, you need to defend your reasons why your trademark should go through, why they should prevail over the opponent's reasons why it shouldn't. And if you can't convince the Trademarks Office, then again, your trademark dies, and if you can, it gets allowed. After it gets allowed, you have to file what's called a statement of use, or declaration of use in Canada, to prove to the Trademarks Office that you're actively using the brand. Because remember, the condom picture, right? When you file a trademark before use, you can file your trademark application before use, but you can't get it registered. So it will get to the allowance, and then they're going to wait for you to tell them, okay, when we filed, we were just thinking about it. Now we're actively using it. When you submit evidence, then at that point it will get registered. I had a question.
So you have to actually use your trademark in order to get it registered?
In Canada and US, yes. In Europe and actually most countries, no, they don't have use requirement. But in all countries, after you got it registered, anybody can cancel your trademark for non-use if you just registered it and sat on it for many, many years without using it. That's how IKEA lost their trademark in Indonesia.
How much time is allowed?
3 years.
3 years.
Usually 3 years. Yeah. All right, so here, after you file a statement of use, your trademark gets registered. This is where you have the trademark registration certificate. You put it on your wall, you drink a lot of tequila, and you celebrate.
And once registered, it remains your property?
I'm going to get there in a second.
Quick question. The whole point, we had talked earlier that once you file an application,
You're protected right here
Okay, thank you.
at the filing. So once it's registered, what you need to take care of is renewals. So in most countries, it's every 10 years. So your trademark registration is good for 10 years, then you renew it for another 10, then another 10, and another 10. Trademarks are actually the only type of intellectual property that you can renew forever. Coca-Cola filed their first trademark application in 1892. Incidentally, they were also selling 9 drinks a day that very year. I call it a lemonade stand with a dream. Same thing as Uber, right? They knew that if they were to build it into something of value, the brand would be a big part of that value. So they trademarked it then. So the trademarks that they own now are those same trademarks they filed in 1892. They just keep renewing them and renewing them and renewing them and renewing them. In Canada currently it's every 15 years, but it's going to switch to 10 in 2018. You also need to see who else is trying to file a trademark similar to yours. It's what we call confusion watch. And if your business structure changes, your address changes, you also need to kind of keep those updated. But that's basically how the trademarking process works. Can you do it yourself? Yes. You're not required to use a lawyer or a trademark agent. The question really is that the best use of your time to learn how to do this properly as opposed to building a good brand or building a good business? Now
One quick question on the renewals.
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't renew, then that trademark comes free use.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, then it's called abandoned, or in the U.S. they call them dead. Theoretically, if you're still in business, you just forgot to renew, you can have some common law or unregistered trademark rights against somebody else who's going to file the same trademark, but it's going to be such an uphill battle, right? So you want to make sure you don't miss those deadlines.
If you're hired in the process, do you cover it all, or where do you stop? Like you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
imagine you go into complications. Would you, as a lawyer,
Yep.
do anything about it?
I'm
or-
going to get there in a moment. Yeah, I'm going to answer that like literally in 3 minutes.
I was wondering, is there like down on the databases where you could check actually what was trademarked already?
Yes. So both in Canada and US, it's public data. The problem is, well, there are 2 problems. Most people don't know how to properly search it. And second problem is, even when they get the list of results, they don't know how to properly interpret them, right? But the specific answer to your question is yes, right? I'm going to get to the searching in a short little while, probably right next to when I'm going to answer Mark's question. So the second way to do it is to use, law firms, online filing companies, other than Trademark Factory. And the problem with them, as I see it, and as I know it, because when I started Trademark Factory, before I started it, I surveyed over 100 business owners and asked them the same question. What do you hate about dealing with lawyers, and trademark lawyers in particular? And all their answers basically revolved about the same thing, right? We never know how much it's going to end up costing us. We don't know whether it's going to even go through. And if it doesn't go through, are we going to get something back? So here's what most of them do. They put a price tag, and they call it a flat fee, but basically what they have is a schedule of fees, like 2 or 3 pages, where they put a price tag on each and every element of those steps. So I'm not going to walk you through that, but they just keep adding up and adding up and adding up and adding up, and easily what they told you is going to cost $500 is going to end up costing way more. And the problem is not that it's expensive. Really, if you're building a big business, or you're hoping to build a big business, even if it's $15,000, it's still worth it, right? Again, the problem is not that it's expensive. The problem is that it's unpredictably expensive. That's what I wanted to challenge with my new model that I came up with that I call Trademark Factory, right? There got to be a better way. So what we do is we offer free comprehensive trademark search. That should answer your question, because what we do is, can you pass those around if you could? Thank you. So it's a free comprehensive trademark search. So instead of you looking at the database, we're going to look at the database for you, and we're going to interpret it for you, and we're going to explain it to you in a 45-minute phone call, where we're going to answer your question: should you do it? What should you do? What should you do? How you should do it, and stuff like that, right? And it doesn't put you under any obligation to buy anything from us. And so one of the things that I welcome you to do is to request that free trademark search from us. So if you have a brand, or you're thinking of a brand, and you want to know whether you can use that brand or trademark that brand, so do that. The second part of what makes us different from everyone else is that we have a single, all-inclusive flat fee. So instead of all of that nonsense, you get one number that covers everything. Right? And we have a 100% money-back guarantee. Again, we're the only firm in the world that does this. So if during the search we tell you that we think your trademark is registrable, and it so happens that it doesn't go through, right? We missed something, or we messed it up, or we got a stupid examiner on the other side, or whatever. Doesn't matter what. If we told you we were going to do it, and if we can't, you're going to get all your money back, right? To me, it's common sense that if I take your money, if I promise you something, if I don't deliver, it's immoral for me to keep your money. Apparently, it's not common practice because we're the only ones that have it. Now, yeah, the only firm that had a predictable result, predictable budget. That's what Trademark Factory is about. So, yeah, it tells you how amazing we are. Found a bunch of trademarks. We've just celebrated our 5th anniversary, August 31st. So that's what the all-inclusive package covers, right? To answer your question, covers everything, including unlimited number of hours responding to those office actions. That's really where most unexpected expenses come from, right? So, and that's what most low-cost trademark filers make their money. They file a crappy application, and then they charge you hourly to fix their own application. Right? I'm not saying there's a conspiracy theory there, but what I am saying is that there is no financial incentive for them to file a perfect application the first time around. Right? There is one for us, because the less time we spend on your file, the better margins we get. Right? So our interests are aligned. We want to get your trademark registered as soon as possible. David?
You said before that when you file your application,
Yeah.
that you have some form of protection.
Yeah.
Until it goes through all the things.
So your protection is in the form of a timestamp.
So even if it goes to the office actions, your trademark remains protected?
It remains protected. Again, depends on what you call by protected, right? So what it protects you from is that if somebody else filed an identical trademark the day after, they won't get it until your process is resolved.
So either mine's approved and then they can't get it, or mine is dead and then they
They're
get
probably
it.
going to get the same objection too, right? So unless they're the ones that have a prior right. So unless you stole somebody's brand, right? You filed for a trademark. They found out about it. They filed a trademark application. Then when your trademark got to here, they opposed it. They won the opposition. Your trademark died. Then there can win, right? But as long as your trademark is pending, somebody who files after you can't do anything about it, right? So yeah, typically, well, it's actually not typically, that's what you get on the website. So we wanted to make this as simple as humanly possible, right? It's $19.95 plus trademarks, per trademark plus tax plus government fees. Again, I'm not selling this to you, I'm just explaining. You get free search, flat fee, follow up, blah, 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 blah. Right?
For Canada, and do you provide
we do Canada, we do US, we do European Union, we do Australia.
for the same fee? For the same fee?
It's per country.
Yeah.
Per trademark per country. Well, no, US is US $19.95, Canada is Canadian $19.95.
Oh, okay.
Euro, I think it's 1095. It's all on the website, right? So, okay, so here's what I wanted to say, and I forgot about it. So, one thing I'm going to add to this is, I don't know where you guys are. Again, I'm not here to sell you, right? This presentation I've used in different events, and Roger specifically asked me not to, turn this into a sales pitch, and I don't want to do that. But if you have a brand that you're actively thinking of trademarking, and so you request that free search by going to freetmsearch.com/VBN, right? So if you add VBN to it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in my book, The Ultimate Insider's Guide to Intellectual Property. I'm going to give you free Confusion Watch for lifetime renewals and amendments, right? So that's that. We're going to get the book. Oh, yeah, and those are the templates that I wrote during my 20-year practice. There weren't templates then. There were custom written agreements. The first one is a copyright assignment agreement, and that's something that most business owners don't know about. When you hire somebody to do something for you, you don't own IP in it. So if I hire Anna to design my logo, and I pay her, guess who owns copyright in the logo? Anna. Unless I have an agreement in writing with her that transfers copyright in the image that I paid for to me. Right? So the first one is a way to backdate that transfer. The second one is when you're hiring somebody to do something for you in the future. Right? Same thing here. Guess who owns the video of my presentation? Right? The third one is a non-disclosure agreement. The fourth one is a trademark license agreement. I just wrote it literally probably 6 months ago for a client. Got paid $4,000 for it, and I thought it's a good agreement. So I removed the name, removed the trademark. But, okay, looks good as a template. So you're going to get all of those for free. So that's where you go to. That's where you request a search.
Go back to that page.
Yep.
Previous page.
That's where it is at the top. That's how it's going to look like. You're just going to tell us what the brand is. You can actually put several. You can put several names to it, and we're going to check them all. You can put the logos, put tagline, and we're here to help you, right? Even if you don't want to buy anything, if you don't want to register anything, I urge you to take this opportunity to have my team, right? It's not going to be me personally doing this, so you're not going to waste my time. Don't worry about that. We have a good system that actually makes this thing happen, right? Check to see if it's trademarkable.
You can upload logos on this page. You can upload logos.
You can upload logos, yeah.
If you do discover that something you've put in there is already registered, do you work with people to come up with something that's...
So we're not a branding agency, but we will work with you in terms of giving you ideas how you could, overcome it and what you need to do to make this work, other than coming up with a completely new name.
Yeah.
Right? And with we have clients, it took them 4 or 5 iterations. Right? They come up with a name, doesn't work. I tell them, okay, come up with a different name. They come up with a different name, it still doesn't work. Right? And sometimes it's, it happens right away. Sometimes it happens more than once. And what we've found as a trend is pretty interesting. The longer it takes them to come up with a good brand, the more desiring they are, the more understanding they are of the value of having a brand that's protected. Right? So sometimes we have a conversation with an owner who has an amazing brand, perfectly trademarkable, and they need to think about it. Right? People who've gone through this more than once, they don't need to think about it. They do it just right away. So, yeah. Do we have any more questions? I don't have any more questions.
On behalf of VBN, we thank you. We have to, yes.
Thank you. Thank you.